notorious for not liking babies.
Yeah.
They just sort of don't do anything, but, cry. So how is the baby going to fit into this season dramatically?
Well, you see the baby. We have a baby. Daniel loves working with the baby. The baby actually, without giving too much away, the baby actually plays a very integral role in the season. It's not just, oh look, Sonny has a baby, and then you never see the baby again. So yeah, the baby plays, without spoiling anything, the baby plays a big role.
That is the heavy, but the fake baby is really, really heavy.
The fake baby is really heavy.
So heavy.
Yeah, we had to invent a fake baby to have, and then it was so heavy that we ended up cutting its legs off. So now we just have like a fake torso and a head, and we're all happy because it's a lot lighter.
It's a lot lighter. So wrong.
The series is known for its great martial arts. You guys seem to step it up. From the first season, it was amazing. Second season, we're like, how are they going to top it? And you guys top it. The third season, this is being the third season. How did you guys make sure you added more adventure than you did the second season? Because that was just intense with the Baroness and all the barons fighting finally.
Right.
So how are you topping it for this season?
Well, first off, we're in the middle of a war. So Baron Chow and the Widow are in a war, which definitely ups the stakes, and we see the front lines of the war. And also by introducing Pilgrim and Cressida into this world, you're bringing in an entirely different sort of flavor than you've seen before, and that's allowed us to, really delve deeper into the Azure mythology and the sort of people with the dark eyes, and which has allowed us, I think, to have a lot of variety in the fighting. I mean, funny enough, the first conversation Daniel and I had about this season, which is how are we going to change up? How are we going to just mix up the fights, and what haven't we done yet? So, I think you see a lot of, Daniel's first fight in episode 1 of the season is very kind of brutal, hand-to-hand, no wires. The first fight of the season with the Widow and Moon is very in the vein of Crouching Tiger and House of Flying Daggers. But then you also have a lot of comedy as well this year. So we really, I think because we're expanding the world, we've been able to really expand the palette of the fights as well.
I think that's kind of a Hong Kong thing too, is there's comedy in the fight, and I kind of love that aspect of it as well, trying to find those little beats. So you can have a fight, but if someone hits you with a chicken at some point, you're going to take a bite out of that chicken, you know what I mean? I like those kind of Hong Kong fight rules when it comes to comedy during a fight, I think it
there's
really adds
spaces within the fight to have a bit of drama happening, whether it's comedy or whatever it is, that allows to breathe, and that fight has its own character on its own.
Is the nunchuck thing a spoiler?
No,
in the
no,
fish. Okay, so there's a fight scene where I
in a
marketplace where I use a dead octopus as a nunchuck.
Exactly.
Those things, I kind of love that about it. And also the scale of our fights mean that we have a whole marketplace selling. One store sells fish, so you then use I think that scale goes up too in season 2. Good. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
I'll go again.
Okay, so in season 2, Nathaniel Moon was an incredible character, Clipper, just like Sonny. Initially, I thought he was dead. What's the significance of bringing him back?
Well,
and with enhancements.
Yes. Well, in season 3, the Widow has, when we begin, she's really sort of alienated everyone. She had the big throwdown with Tilda, Lady Bird with a chandelier dropping on you, and then Waldo had sort of become disillusioned and had left her, so she had to go out and recruit a new regent. And so she goes out and finds Moon, who was, we always said in season 2, was a former Clipper, and you find out that he used to be her husband's regent, which is why she goes and recruits him. And then one of the things that she does is build him a mimic hand that, and again, that's really a homage to martial arts films as well. And we wanted it to have a bit of a steampunk vibe to it, so that it's a little tricked out. You know what I mean? So it's got a sword, it's got darts, it's got sort of different little weapons that he can use. So
I think personally as well for me and Moon, played by Sherman, is we had such a good time with him on the second season, and I think there are some people you meet during your time on a set who are not only talented and fucking nice as a person, but he works hard, And you said, I think Sherman's been trying to I think a lot of his career trying to make a break and to try and make it as a big business, and it's difficult. So when you find out that he's coming back as a season regular, you think, yes, you know, it literally couldn't have happened to a better person, because he fucking works hard, and he's good, and he's nice to be around, you know.
I was curious about one thing, and it's something on the show. With the widow going on her rampage right now, with the act of desperation, it was explained in the opening prologue why there are no guns, but I've been kind of curious, who enforces that, and what's stopping somebody in an act of desperation from saying, if I don't bring out some heavy artillery, we're wiped out? How that law came into place ever going to be explored further?
It's happening right now in the country. Yeah. Today means that there are no guns in 500 years.
No, but the idea was that in the mythology, it was 100 years ago when these barons sort of pulled the world out of the Dark Ages in this Foundation Treaty, and they banished guns. So you've had 100 years where people haven't seen a gun, haven't made a gun, they don't know what guns are. So that's really how we explain it in this world. There will come a time when that element of the show comes back into it. It's not something, frankly, you're really going to see this season, but the idea is, you're in a world that hasn't seen something for 100 years, and it's not like they have access to technology or to history books to even know what they were. So it's just a world. They don't know what a gun is.
Thank you.
There's a lot of world building in the show, obviously. What are some of your biggest influences for post-apocalyptic movies, TV show, anything like that, and how far ahead have you planned for the story?
Well, interestingly, I'll tell you what our influences weren't, which were not Mad Max, not Blade Runner. Because that's basically, both of those movies came out in 1982, and they have influenced post-apocalyptic world building for the last 35, 40 years. So what we really tried to do was lean into more of, Sergio Leone, Chinese cinema, historical cinema, and Japanese samurai films. So I think that's why the world has a lot of color in it. That's why it's a dystopian future, and there's certainly no, electronics, but we wanted the world to have color. We didn't want to be Book of Eli. We didn't want to be, frankly, every other post-apocalyptic show that you see or movie.
So the widow has lost her way as the savior to the disenfranchised. So is someone going to pick up that mantle?
Well, I would say the widow's trying to pick up that mantle. She's really trying to sort of get herself, back. Yeah, she's like, good luck with that. But I think she, and the things that she did in season 2, she's going to have to deal with. You know what I mean? And come to terms with them. So they're not things that we just that happened, now we're going to talk about it anymore. I mean, it's something that's very much dealt with.
Yeah, and I think it continues to be an emotional struggle for her to deal with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I think she's trying to get it back, because I think what Chow represents is so brazenly the old world that nobody wants, that I think it still gives the widow still looks like a better option than Chow. So we'll see.
Lorraine, can you talk about your hand in creating Cressida and what you needed to know about the show to get up to speed fast enough to jump right in?
I watched the first 2 seasons back to back, and realized that I hadn't seen anything like this on television. And I've been wanting to get into this genre for the longest time, and all I've been getting hired for to play lawyers and doctors. And I really wanted to play dress up and wield swords and do sword play and fight and fly and all the extraordinary things I do in this season. I was really thrilled to come on board. And I didn't have to do fight camp, which there's 3 weeks of fight camp at the beginning of every year.
Yeah.
And then I probably came, and within the first week I was doing a fight.
Exactly.
Trial by fire.
And realized that I really loved it. It's not as hard as it looks, and then it is really much harder than it looks. And so it's kind of like being in the sandbox with these guys. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, so I'm so sorry for asking again, but last season we saw the small stories that eventually all built up together. are we, because there's so many characters, new characters, and the other characters from previous, are we going to see the small build-ups of each storyline and then it comes all together, or are we all going to have it all together, like with all of them together?
The story's definitely, you're right about season 2. You had sort of the Sunny story, the Sunny Baji story, the Widow story, the Quinn story, and then they all kind of converge at the end. This season, we wanted those stories to crash into each other sooner. So you're going to see a lot more interaction between the characters. You know, I mean, I remember even talking to Emily and saying, you know, last year the majority of your scenes were with Tilda and with Waldo. You know, and this season she's, you know, interacting with a lot more characters, as is Baji, as is Sunny, Pilgrim and Cressida as well. You know, so I think it's something we definitely wanted to see, you know, a lot more, you know, interconnectivity between the characters. And also what's great is you get to write scenes for characters who hadn't met each other after 2 seasons, which is also cool.
Are we done with the monastery?
We are not done with the monastery.
Are we going to see what happened at the end with how they all came against the master and everything? What the fallout from that was?
Sorry, say that again.
So how they all came against the master at the end. That's how we left it off.
Oh yeah, we get back to the monastery story. Right. So yeah, that's all I can say. Yes.
I like how you guys cast some actors who have real martial arts background. So with season 1 and 2, you had Kun Lei as your guest star, and this season you have Louis Tan.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about what you brought to the table this season?
Well, it's just always, I mean, it is a lot easier when you have someone that can actually do all that stuff and they have that foundation already. So, I mean, of course we have the fight camp and we train people, but when someone comes to the table with that skill set, that just makes it a lot easier, and then we can make even crazier stuff. Like I said earlier, we create the fights based on the strengths of each individual actor. And so if someone has a broad palette of tools like that, then it becomes much easier, much more fun for us to do something crazier with it. So Louis was a great act. It was great to have him on board and have that experience that he has, you know, since a little kid learning martial arts, and then his family being in the film business, you know, all that helps to create these films. And he was really excited because he's finally getting to do it on a really good show. Yeah, so.
What are some of your personal preferences for Kung Fu, either in movies or just martial arts in general?
Like what kind of personal preferences?
Well, personally, I'm big on Bruce Lee and Jet Li, and obviously Into the Dragon is a timeless classic, so I'm just wondering what you guys think about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of more in that realm where it's mostly Asian stuff. I'm not really a Chuck Norris fan. Or Van Damme or that kind of stuff. That era, like I grew up in that era, the 80s, you know, martial arts, American films. But really what got my imagination going was the wuxia Chinese films, right? And I think that's the heavier influence on our show than let's say the American stuff. But mostly, yeah, Chinese and then maybe Japanese samurai stuff as well.
So Quinn is dead, so is Vale. The Widow is sort of out of place, and obviously these are all power players, but they're also really symbolic of themes of fatherhood and motherhood. So how are those 2 themes going to change with the players changing this season? What are those 2 things going to look like, if you can share, this season that it might not have looked like last season?
Well, I think, first of all, you have Sunny as a single samurai father who's fighting for his son. You have the Widow and Tilda who are going to have to find a different version of their relationship. You know, when we meet them again at the beginning of the season, Tilda and the Widow are very much at odds. But I think it's like a lot of, you know, it's a lot of young women and their mothers, and I have an 18-year-old daughter and a wife, and it's fun to watch every day. But you get to see how that evolves, and how Tilda used to have this absolute sort of love and devotion for the Widow, and the Widow always had, you know, thought you could control Tilda and tell her anything she wanted to, you know, hear to kind of keep her in line. But now Tilda sees her mother in a different way, and they have to come back to each other in I think in a much more adult relationship than what they had before. And I think Tilda also, even though she lives in the Badlands, saw the world in a very black and white way, and she has to realize that some of the choices that you make are, you know, morally gray. And frankly, Lydia helps her in that. Lydia's someone who's been in the Badlands forever. She's been at the top, she's been at the bottom, she's been a survivor, and she knows how the game is played. So I think that's something that'll play. So you have Tilda, who has these 2, you know, it's almost like the mother she hates at the moment, and like the cool aunt who she can turn to for advice. You have Sunny, who's literally trying to be a single dad, Vale's last words were, teach him how to be good. How do you do that in this world, and how do you do that with all these tattoos on his back? Then you have Pilgrim, who's come into the Badlands as a sort of fanatical religious figure, but he's sort of preaching a different kind of, way to that the world should be, and the idea that he's the shepherd and this is his flock, and he and Cressida are sort of inviting people in, like, if you want to get away from these barons where you guys are basically cannon fodder for these powerful people, we'll come to us, and we're going to build something new together that deals more in faith, and we'll start to see how MK gets seduced by that. MK, who has always been looking for some sort of father figure, who's been abandoned and lied to at various points in the show, and how he gets drawn into that world. So I think there's a lot of, and then you have Louis Tan, who plays Gaius Chow, who is Baron Chow's black sheep abolitionist brother, who, she's basically kept in a cage for many years, and how he escapes, and then what is his relationship to his family when you're that person and your family has that kind of history. So I think there's definitely a lot of parents, and as opposed to mothers and daughters, fathers, so there's really parents and children, and I think even Tilda says it, which is prescient, which is how do we, if we want to change the world, we have to stop this cycle of violence that we're in, and not repeat the mistakes of the older generation. So I think there's a lot of those things running through the show.
We have time for one more question. In the red?
For Lorraine, coming from a show like Orange is the New Black, where it's, women, just women, pretty much, and a show like, coming to a show like Into the Badlands, which I think a lot of the women are kind of the power players on that show. When you get a script now that doesn't have such strong female characters, like, what's your reaction to that? Are you...
I send them back to my agent.
Yeah.
I'm so not interested in those anymore, and I'm also not interested in playing. I've gotten very, very spoiled. I'm not interested in women who are archetypal and only represent one thing. I want dimension and complexity and interesting, unpredictable women. I like the danger of unpredictability.
Yeah. And Lorraine's amazing in the season. I think what's great about her and Babu and Nick when he came too, it's like you got to come into this world and be ready to play and just feel like you're in it. And I remember, when Lorraine, when she shot her first scenes with Babu, and I felt like, yes, she snapped into this world because she came to play. We tried to write a character with real agency so that she was strong, but strong in a different way than you'd seen, and again, also we didn't want to do another version of the Widow, another version of Chow. It's like, what can she bring to this world? And we developed a whole, Azarian language, which Lorraine learned.
I knew.
Yes, there you go. No idea what you said. So I think that's the thing too, is when everybody comes to do the show, they really are all in, and I think and I think that's frankly the appeal of our show, because you're like, how would you like to uproot yourself and move to Ireland? So it's just like, if we didn't do something interesting, I don't think we would get actors of this caliber. So, and I think that's, we're really grateful that they're in the show and just help us to keep expanding this story. So thank you guys.
I think to be fair though, I think when the part of the, for me anyway, part of the allure is that I think Alan Miles are very good at giving you a bit of ownership over your character at the very least.
Very much.
So I think once you have that, then why wouldn't you be all in? Because that's up to you. What comes out is up to you. What you put in is what you see on screen. So to not do that seems silly, and you don't often get that. Where someone says, "What do you want to do? Is the script all right? What would your character say?" You know what I mean? It's kind of rare and great to do, and I think it gets a lot of good stuff out of people because they give a shit.
They're not afraid of the hard questions. Because you shoot them off some really tough questions, and you get, let's think about that. I'll be right back. And they come back, and the answers are terrific. It's something that you can take and run with. That's been really exciting.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.